Hello, everybody. I am here with Sandra, and today we're going to speak about her life's work, Jinky 42. And we're also, I think, going to go into the activation sequence a little bit. You have some of the keys that you have twice, so it's really exciting. And you are a 3-5, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, and when I was looking at your chart, I was under the impression that we're going to do the 32 because that's your evolution, and it's all about this trial and error. And I would like to hear how you have experienced the 42 and the 32 and being a third line. I mean, that's kind of a dive deep in, but I feel like that's the most.
I wrote a book recently. There you have it. There's my story. Yeah, it's been interesting, Bella. It has been the journey, and I will just start with living. It's one thing with kind of some subtle awareness to the way life unfolds, but having these tools like Gene Keys, human design, and all this stuff, it has just only provided greater liberation for me to really embody the beauty and the gifts of the journey even more, right? So now, even though I land in the victimhood stages at periods and times of my path, I can now have more grace and compassion. And so I have learned now to navigate the trial and error life with greater ease and flow and acceptance. Mm-hmm. And that actually has just lifted a lot of weight off of me personally. And when I look at my life's work, it's just humorous. My whole life has kind of been predicated on expectations.
Right.
And it makes sense now. Wow. I've been living in this kind of mindset that I expect things of myself, or I expect things of other people. I expected my motherhood journey to be so incredibly flawless till she arrived and got a big dose of, reality. And I have to say, I'm on the brink of being 50 in a couple years. So I have like 8 6 lines in my human design chart. Okay. And I carry quite a bit of 5s and 6s in my Gene Keys anyhow. Those are predominantly. So there is a lot of 3s going on regardless, because I'm still kind of in that trial and error phase. Thankfully, it's sort of kind of dimming down a little. But it's been pretty, what would even be the word? Because I have experienced every emotion known to man. And that has been a thing in itself, to go through the whole emotional wave experience on top of everything. But one thing I've known about myself, regardless of all these tools that now have become more obvious for me to kind of look at and say, oh, okay, like there's a reason this is happening. I have recognized that in the wave of all these changes, the resiliency is there. And I know that that is something really profound with the third line. And so that gives me a very, that grounds me, right? Knowing that no matter what, I will come through it. I have come through it. And so whatever more comes my way, I just have to keep creating the space and grace that I'll rise every time. I won't always do it gracefully and patiently and with great tolerance, but I will. And so that is one way that I've really endeavored the third line up till now. And I was made aware of kind of the variations of the third line recently, that it's always, and this made so much sense. It's like seeking change, but desiring consistency. Mm-hmm. That oscillation between change and consistency has been the tightrope I have walked my whole life. So that's kind of an intro to just where I've been as far as the third line. So I hope that helps.
Right. No, I love that. And for me, it is a powerful combination. That's why I started with this 42, the 32, the fear of failure, the expectations, and then have that third line that is kind of here to put the hand on the stove and get burned, right? To
Oh,
have
yeah.
like, you have like a behavioral imprint in one way, and then you have like a kind of a mindset in the shadow that is like, I don't want to fail. I want this to be perfect. It's like kind of a clash in, it looks like a clash,
Yes.
and at the same time, the resiliency. So can you speak a little bit more about, for you, what resiliency, what does that mean for you as a third
Mm-hmm.
line?
That's a great question. What it feels like for me, because I've come more into the body of the experience of resiliency than the mind, because it can be so, seductive when it wants to be, is trusting that regardless of what happens, however things tend to show themselves in the capacity that they do, at least this is just, again, speaking from my own journey, and motherhood has been the bandwidth that has tested every cell in my being. So I can really just use that as a barometer of life as a whole. Resiliency to me feels like the rising up, the in some degree, it kind of, just thinking intuitively right now out loud with you in my quad right fashion, because this is me just not knowing what's going to come out until I'm in the moment. It is, to some degree, it mirrors sort of the living and dying, the death and rebirth, and the shedding of skin. And so every time I have endured, endeavored, experienced, and explored whatnot, that path, whatever it is, motherhood or relationships, career, it's resiliency feels to me like a renewal, kind of like a cleansing, and then a restart, like a reset, like, okay. And every time that resiliency shows itself, it's giving me freedom to expand, to cleanse, and to kind of start anew from that new space that's not full of clutter energetically or whatnot. So that's how it feels to me. It almost, to me, even aligns beautifully, as I'm kind of envisioning my Gene Keys chart here, with my vocation of valor, having that courage and needing the courage of the moment every time, but allowing the experience to be what it needs to be so that I can embody it and then bring a voice to it, which is what I do in the 5, right?
Yeah.
Pretty well. I mean, like, I just know that about myself. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, I know that that's my union of those two: experience and voicing, expressing.
Yeah, I can see that. And then or first I wanted to maybe just comment that's, now I understand also by hearing you, that the 6th line and the 3rd line, how they are different. Because the 6th line, when something happened and it kind of gets, burnt, or it's like it goes up on the roof and it kind of takes a while. It kind of wants to like discern and look before it goes down in the world again. If it does, it can take, is the 6th line, like you say, it can take a lifetime.
Oh,
But the 3rd line has that robustness and resiliency of being okay. It's like, it's a fast, like getting off the dirt and then start anew.
Yeah. Brush up. Let's do it. Like, we can't, whatever we want to quote around the words itself, but as if like the moment can't be lost. Like, there's a learning here. There's something to be had. There's something to behold. So let's not lose, waste. And that can speak into the gift of the 32, which is preservation. Like, let's preserve whatever was perceived to have not been good or right or bad or failed or unworthy or not perfect, or and this has been literally the seesaw of my life. Like, I can so see clearly that when I live in expectation, then I'm often feeling like I've been failed or disappointed, or I disappoint people, or it's not good enough. I'm not good enough. All these like intense emotions happen.
Right.
And when I've embody the work, not by mind, but literally by frequency, by energy, by experience, it's almost as if the resiliency teaches me, see, if you just let go and detach, you'll get something from it. You'll learn something from it. You'll grow from this. There's an opportunity to share. There's a lesson to be had. There's a memory now that you get to, like a new memory you get to put in your cells and kind of reprogram your body with, so every day I'm living this, every single day. And it feels heavy though, for anyone that's watching that has this particular combination. Often I do find myself in that martyrdom, if there is to be, this label or that label, but heaviness and this like weighted down of like, will this ever give? Can I just get a flippin' break?
Yeah.
Why does something always have to happen? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's kind of the story that goes behind the drama of the third line that I can tell you straightforward I have experienced.
Yeah. And then you were saying the consistency and the change. And what I sometimes tell third lines is that I want them to throw consistency out of the window, but it's not the consistency is wrong. It's just the pressure of having to be consistent that I feel like there's a lot of pressure for third line. And the word that I often relate to with third lines is dynamism, because then you can be grounded, but there's still, fun things that happen. So I'm wondering, I just want to understand a little bit more when you say that you're longing for consistency, what it is that you are longing for and how that's, how that goes together with the change that also is inherent in the
Yeah. It does feel resonant, the consistency and change. To me, it really does resonate, meaning, okay, so taking an example, prior to motherhood, prior to being married, all that stuff, I've always have been an adventurous being, up and go, like very adaptable. And I have an open center in human design. So I'm very much like my environment is how I'm, fluid and moving and whatever. So what my experience has been is that hunger, that seeking, and it probably speaks to my soul quotient of desire in that shadow, kind of like whether I'm ever in the lightness and rapture of it, I don't know 100%. So it is that like eagerness, that hunger, that desire, that drive, that wanting of the experience, because so much life happens for me, right? So much comes to my own awareness in the endeavoring of that experience. So that is something, regardless, that I have found will never go away. And at the same time, a part of me, when it goes back to what I just said about, can anything just slow down? Like, can I just get a break? That's more of like, can I just have a breathing space here so that I know what to expect, which is going back into the shadow a little bit, which is, I don't want to be caught off all the time, So for me, like motherhood has been, and even being married, it's one thing to own it as an individual and have whatever regulation that you're able to with mind, body, and spirit. It's another thing when it's out of control for you, which again, I'm just speaking through the experience of my imprinting. Control is in my vocation, wanting control, wanting to know, wanting to have some kind of handle on things, right? Or I feel out of control. So I think that consistency comes more from the learning that I have in the vocation of the 21. And so the consistency for me is just, I just want to know for a short period of time, I can count on this. There's some sense of reliability before I keep going like this in the roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it can go like this with my kid. What would be an example? I want her to be consistent with bedtime. Okay, this is the wanting, the like, can we just do it pretty much the same every night. Like I set your rhythm up every night. How is it you can't work in this? I've given you an environment that's really consistent, pretty habitually what's, expected or what that environment looks like. And when she changes any part of that or throws off, then you can just tell, like, this is where I go in my own chaos, right? Like, but I had this all worked out, right? And then I'll take the other side of it, which is, let's just say I now want to go do something on a certain night. Okay, we can play it the other way. And as a family, somebody's in town, it's the holidays, and I'm like, no, we're going to go do the holiday lights. It's okay. Like, so what? One night your bed routine isn't the same. It's fine. Like, just go with the flow. You have to be able to adapt and be flexible. See how double standard that is? And she wants consistency. Then she's like, I want my bedtime at this time because and so it's like, so this is the duality that I often experience in that.
Yeah.
It's not just alone. It's so many other people involved in
but that kind of takes me, your daughter is a 4/6, right? That's her profile.
6, yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm exploring and understanding a lot about the 3/5 and the 4/6 in relationship, because I have one of my best friend has the same activation sequence, but she's a 3/5, I'm a 4/6.
Okay.
So and also, I think that is a very interesting way of looking at the only thing that kind of differs in the activation sequence, it's the profile.
Okay.
And I can feel a certain tension between the 4/6 profile and the 3/5 in close relationships, especially. So is there anything that you feel that you can kind of trace back to the profile that has been a challenge with your daughter? And maybe if you have, like, okay, now I understood that part, this is how I overcome it, like, or have you thought about it profile wise between the 3/5 and 4/6?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're talking specifically profile, right? Not like the charts, but like
Exactly.
the profile. Yeah. So she's a very wise soul. She's 9 years old. A lot of times she wants to be my mother. A lot of times what she embodies already is the wisdom that I believe I'm giving her. And I know that's total ego, but I'm saying that in fun, love, and humor. Mm-hmm. But however I'm modeling or I'm showing up energetically or continued guidance, what I often find resistance in with her, she's a knower. I know. Everything's I know. So there's this dissonance in my capacity to share whatever experience I've learned, and then being the savior, being the rescuer. And this is, very natural for moms in general to want to, like, help their child anytime there's any ounce of pain or, suffering. Mm-hmm. Right. And then that's a whole nother thing, because we weren't given just a very simple journey. Like, we were truly given a pretty intense biomedical healing journey that we had to help our daughter through. So the heretic to me was like, I was like, to the rescue. Like, you gave me this child, let's go to work. So it's perceived as like a fixing kind of thing. And for her, I do believe, because of the nature of her profile, that she's all about community. She's all about her family, which is so awesome and so wonderful. That third line right now for her begets my third line, right? It's like constant, like, we need each other to experience each other, right? Like, so, and then my spouse is a 1/3. So, like, this house is full of a lot of trial and error. And it can get intense, because there's all this helplessness or mayhem. And I'm not trying to inflame this, dramatize this. I'm just giving, like, snippets of the parts that are harder than not. I can say, though, the gift in many things with her is, often than not, when she's able to kind of tap back into her naturalness without anything, just sometimes I stay in that shadow a little longer out of conditioning and story. she's very resilient. I believe in that third line to bounce right back in. And she's like, come on, mom. Okay, take a pause, give me a hug. This is what I need. And she can sit there and guide me back into connection with each other. So that would be kind of my take in kind of an impromptu experience of our line. My sister's a 4-6, and we're just different people completely. And it's a beautiful thing. We're all different, we've had to find our footsteps too as siblings.
I can see that thing with the 4-6, that kind of just wanting it to be good again, that vision of like, we can be a family again, we can be friends again, we can hug each other again. It's like there's like this longing for that. Yes. And somehow sometimes the 5 especially, like, no, but my truth was compromised, or
Yes, I didn't get to say and share and distill and deconstruct and give you the whole nitty-gritty reasons why, right? Because isn't it like, I'm trying to remember what Richard says, like the third line's here, we're here to teach people about feelings or behaviors, right? As a third line, or is that the 5 line? I think feelings is the third line and behavior is the 5th line. So that's so in line with my whole existence, why I do the work that I do, why I'm so adamant about getting to the bottom of things. And sometimes more than not, I often become not critical, but constructive in the unfolding of our tirades sometimes. And she tells me pretty straight up, I don't want reality when I'm having a moment. Don't give me the reality. Because I often will say to her, this isn't going to work in the real world. Like this whole lashing, screaming moment, like the real world. And so she does not like to hear that. She will say, I just want you to love me. It brings everything back to just love me. Don't teach me in this moment. And my 5th line wants to come in and like break it all down. Like, we need to learn the lesson, how these feelings and behaviors work. I'm telling you.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I can see the 4-6 bringing it back to love. I mean, I also have an SQ that is the 4th line, and I have my, what more? I have like kind of a lot of 4th lines, but also the thing with reality when I, in a relationship with a 5th line, or that sometimes for me it's the vision. Like I can even remember one time I was saying something about sexuality. We went to a club and there were, it was like a gay club, but I could see it, and they had like a show with all these, where all these men were dressed like women, but it was like, it wasn't even beautiful. It was like, I would just wanted to take them and say like, imagine you're 4 again and I really love you. Like that's what I wanted to do with them. And then we came home, I think it wasn't until the following day, and I was like crying. I was like, there's so much distortion in this world and sexuality. Like I was so sad, and I was like, I wasn't even able to tap into my own warmth in my own body again. Okay. And then it's like the 5th line is like, but is like, what's the reality? What about you and me? What's going, like, stop, like, humanity and what, if you have a problem right now, you can't tap into your body, come back here. What's the problem?
Yes.
Like, but I just want to cry and feel.
But I think you touched on it. It's for me, Bella, it has really been about allowing myself to feel, which is really like in my human design, I have the whole experiential channel of 30 to 41, all unconscious. That's all I have to the solar plexus and the root. And I even wrote like a couple years ago, like on this path of spirituality, I forgot to be human. And the 3rd line reminds me to get back into this earth and ground myself. Whereas the transpersonal line is going to be all about, let's bring it up a little bit. Right. And so my daughter's Pearl, her highest city is universal love. She's living beautifully, which she doesn't even know is mapped out for her. And of course, if I want to like show her, she's like, I don't want to do gene keys and human design. She's like, sometimes if I'm off course, really, she's just like, why do you even do that? Like, if you're not, like, basically she's saying, like, if you're not going to teach it and live by it, then don't tell me anything about it, because I don't want to hear it. I mean, this is how tapped in and plugged in she really is from that transpersonal.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to share your chart for a little moment so that.
I have it memorized by visual, so I see things in my conversation with you.
I know. That's what's so cool.
I have it visually. I'm like, here, it's there and there, and that's this and this, and my daughters. I've looked at it, but that's the quad, right? That again, I take it in, and then until I'm like being pulled out, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I knew my chart pretty well.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna tell people the quad right is when you have all little arrows to the right, which means that you're kind of the new brain, the right wired brain that takes in a lot and that can channel things. And it's not until basically you speak to me or I kind of drink from you that we know what's really in there. So
Yes.
it's very interesting way, and kind of the way we have learned, because I have my two top ones to the right, which is the mind and the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been for me in school. I feel like I was a very good student, but it was by force. It was by that 32 that I have twice in my chart and not wanting to fail. It wasn't because it was the correct way for me of learning. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel with the quad right, or the right brain and mind, that the way that we are supposed to learn is so not, or the way that we are supposed to take in, and learn is
Yeah.
often not at all how we are supposed to learn. Or
This
how,
changed everything for me. Knowing quad right, you can't even imagine the stories I lived with. I remember in third grade, I walked home with a report card that said, Sandra doesn't comprehend well. That's it. That became a tape my whole life. I'm not smart. I don't comprehend well. I'm never going to learn well. How can my other friends do it? They get it so quickly. I'm not a good test taker. Oh my goodness, the pain I said, induced on myself just from that script, that tape, right? And once I learned quad right, honestly, one of the greatest game changers, and one that I'm now at my age leaning more into daringly, almost from that warrior Buddha, like manifesting generator embodiment, where I'm showing up kind of like no agenda, which is really important for my life's work, right? No expectations, detaching, seeing what comes out of me. And, going back to just like the 4, 6, and 3, 5, just kind of to bring closure into that. What I've noticed as well is when I'm in the low of my parenting or in my relationships of any kind, it is because what's being given in my environment is only pulling the yucky out of me. It's it's like, it's not those moments or circumstances or conversations or energies, those connections aren't feeding my well. They're kind of like suppressing it. And I've noticed that. So when I can be in a high mind, or if my daughter, I'm not putting it on her, but let's just say she has a cooperative, compliant moment, quote, whatever that is to anybody who parents, we all have our own perspectives. Let's just say she does what she's asked the first time, and I don't have to like use a ton of energy. I think, wow, Sandra, you handled that really well. Like, it is in you to be a very patient, calm, high rising mother. Right? So just interesting, right? That it has so much depth beyond words, actually, that the energy speaks its own language in these cognitive places in our charts. At least for me, I can tell the difference when I'm in an environment that feeds me or depletes me.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and right now I was looking back, because we spoke about the failure and the expectations, and then I see that you have an open ego, and that you both have your core wound there, and you also have your conscious wound, which is part of your drive. So kind of like, I'm interested in when you feel like you're in school, for example, when you feel like you're not good enough, like how that works into you going into control, which is the 21, or like what are the coping mechanisms that are not truth, basically, that you fall into, maybe due to this open ego of like wanting to prove yourself, or like not feeling worthy when these things get triggered. And how has that played out for you? You can also say it's a fifth line of guilt, so it's kind of even a double
It's
sword.
heavy. It's
Yeah.
heavy. Yeah, Bella. Control. I've been told I was a control freak, when I was younger. And I could see it in the rising of even my marriage. I was like, I'm going to handle the finances, which is perfect in 21, right? Because it's like the finance keeper. So that totally made sense. One of my little like Sandra checklist things when I was single at 35 was, oh, do you care who does the bills? Because I like to manage the bills. My husband's like, I have no care in the world. And I'm like, perfect, ding, ding, ding. So, and there was times when I was like trying to control, like, where are we spending this? And I've eased up on that. the helplessness, it's really helplessness and victimization that comes in on the fifth line, because they were both fifth lines, right? In the
One is
moon.
a sixth line, I think. The conscious moon is a sixth line.
It
So
was okay. Well, that's still heavy in its own way, right? Going through the experience, of course. I'm getting there slowly. I'm reaching it in a couple of years, and I can see that I've evolved. Like I can see where I've surrendered the need for control. It typically happens like when I was younger. It was in high school. I wanted to be the one that drove. You know, I was never going to drink and drive. Like I was a designated person. Like that was definitely where control played out there. And in my parenting, my daughter, her vocation is the 34, and it's a sixth line, and it's force, strength, and majesty. So control and force are made of two pretty potent mixtures.
yeah.
And this is like the path that we've been called to. And I can see when like I'm in control and she is force, right? She is forcing and persisting. And so a lot of times I feel like that 21 happens more in a helplessness, or when she was really going through a lot of biomedical things and I was putting my whole self in. I wanted control. I wanted to know, right? It's the 61 too, like being so intellectual, needing to know everything, like being so precise about whatever. I mean, I can see like, as I'm talking to you, it's like my whole chart just swirls and it's like, there's my story. If anyone just would have told me that 9 years ago, I could have been a little bit more relaxed mom. Right. But I wasn't meant to know that, because then the work I'm doing now is to support the very people that are going through their stuff. So control plays out when I'm definitely in shadow, when I'm feeling helpless, when I'm feeling like I'm not able to get my needs met, or whatever I've done doesn't seem good enough, or there's a perception of failure, right? Mm-hmm. And just even probably subtle perfectionist. I think I've really let that reign go over the years, but I can see, I think you talked about the sixth line having a lot of perfectionist traits. Yeah, that I was known as like the perfectionist, controlling rescuer. Helped everybody. And self-sacrificing, like in a sense, like self-negligent. I think a lot of times, you know, when I get in my martyrdom, or I get into my story about woe is me, then I start to take back control. Like no, this is going to change, and this is how we're going to need to do it. Cause like all of a sudden I matter. And like, I just got this like burst of awareness, like you matter, take care of yourself. So I don't know all the planets though. Like maybe you can talk to that, but I don't really like understand the difference between the core wound being in the 21 and then the moon. Do you see them acting differently, or are they pretty much the same?
It's so interesting because me and Ashley were working with Victoria, who's an astrologer, who's also a contributor to the 64 Doors. And last week she was, speaking to us about this thing about the moon being the core wound in Norse astrology, because in astrology we only use the, the personality activations, the black side of the body graph. And then and I was looking into mine, which is, I think it's 28-6, and I could see especially that the core wound kind of has to do with the mother too. So I could, and Ashley also felt like, oh yeah, in my chart too, that makes sense. So it's interesting for you that you have it, you have the same in your core wound, in your unconscious Mars, as you have in your conscious moon. And so and they're both like, in the mental lines, in the 5 and the 6. I would see, the way that I usually look at the moon on the conscious side is the drive. It's something that drives us. So for me, it's the 28, it's totality, it's immortality, it's the 6th line, it's like, that's what drives us. But somehow, isn't that also interesting that what drives us is our imprinting, what comes from our mother, what, like, if it's unconscious, it's like these unconscious things that kind of fuel us. Mm-hmm. So I think that you can, in those two, you can see how the moon can be the drive in the core wound. I feel what Richard is doing with the gene keys, I'm going to share your chart again, is that, I think that the gene keys are, the gene keys has very much to do with where we're now as humanity. And they are a living transmission. That's what Richard is saying. And that's maybe also why he kind of felt like human design was kind of set first, and you kind of have to start by what's set, and then maybe you get into cosmology or the more mystical stuff. And with the gene keys, it's more like, okay, where are we now as humanity, and looking at 55 and the 22 of like, how do we, like evolution, involution. So when we look at the core wound, we have Mars, unconscious Mars, which is this kind of unconscious immature masculine, all these like, characteristics of what we can see in the world too, that, when the immature masculine rules, there is war and there is like violence and all these things, and that's what we are integrating the feminine aspect, whether we are female or male, and that's why I think that he has decided that for now the core wound is the immature masculine, it's Mars. And then you can also see, interestingly enough, on the other side of the SQ, you have conscious Mars. So it's like, it's this play where in the middle you have Venus and you have love and you have that, the core part of your chart, where we're also going to put Saturn. So Venus and Saturn in the middle. And then we have this like kind of younger Mars that is like, the distorted, or the emotions that we're going through, and then the kind of the deepest wound. And I feel like it's very much because that's where we are right now, and that this can even change, and I've been working a lot with Saturn and looking at, how can we marry the SQ with, or the Venus with Saturn, and kind of get our stability there, so that can overflow into healing and into healing the emotional wound. So I get curious on your chart. So for you, that's so interesting. For you, your Saturn is 8-6. So, for you, part of what's going to give you stability is when you can marry this 30.6 with the 8.6. So when you can take your unique style and be that in the world, and also with all these throat gates that you have, it's like, it's your unique expression. When you can take that into, your rapture, what you burn for, then you are going to find your stability. And then it's like, no, you're not, your control is not going to carry you away, or your, scatterness or indifference. Like, you are going to be able to ground. The sixth line is a lot about grounding, although it's the highest line, it's so much about grounding. So to have a double 6 in your marriage also kind of tells me that, you say that one of your greatest, I feel like when I speak to you always, that this mothering, that's where you really started to unfold, like your, it's like,
and I was 40. I was 39, first child. So I went in with a lot of expectations, for sure. Oh yeah. Didn't want to fail. Are you kidding me? I had my color code charts. I had it all going on. It was like corporate world on steroids as a mother. We had baby app connect. We knew when we peed and pooped, and you talk about control. It was that, like, I don't want anything to go wrong. Like, this is mine to carry,
Yeah.
And so that's so cool. I like how you kind of dynamically brought that in. I would like to kind of learn more, because I haven't seen it, explained that way, from like the Saturn and the Venus and then back.
Right. And that's part of, like, that's where I see that the star pearl starts. And we kind of, many times we speak about, and we start the star pearl, we speak about Saturn and stability. But for me, it's so important to say Venus and Saturn are together. They're at the same point in the chart. And for you, knowing it's a sixth line, it's like, it takes a while. So it's not strange that it's for you to find your inner stability. And there can be a lot of, desire of wanting to like get it right, or desire of like how it should be. And also, the 8 not really finding its unique style of doing it, but trying, relying on control or on other things, or trying so many different things.
Yes, perfect. And I've often said I was a late bloomer. I've known this about my nature, and it explains my 6 lines. I got married late. I had a daughter late, like my evolution is unfolding, like probably the prosperity of my existence is now finally going to find its bloom, in the next half of my 50 years. And patience. Oh, hello. That's why I was given my one big life force child that she is. Mm-hmm. My future human being who has the 19 in her lovely, I think it's her life's work. Yes. And it's like her emotional EQ, the 19, like the future human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She had to bring me in this world. She's like, lady, we got some work to be done. And I'm going to parent you a little bit more than you probably think you're going to parent me. Go and write your books. Do your little practice. Oh my gosh. Honestly, Bella, I crack up now, but like in those moments, it's draining. I mean, I'm just here to state the reality of the third line in action.
Yeah, and there is something I want to again ask when I look at your chart, because when I look at the Venus sequence and putting things out. So here, I look at the Venus sequence, especially the SQ, EQ, and IQ, which is like, your emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, and body intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. So we kind of want these three to really work together, and all these four planes of our beings to be equally embraced. And what often happens, is that it's uncomfortable. This is when we are children, right? The SQ is like when we're too young to process emotionally or mentally. It kind of stays in our cell memories. And here it's the age from 8 to 14. So it's when we start school, and maybe when teachers tells us we're not smart enough, and they're like, breakdowns or like conflicts with our friends in school and all this. So we kind of tend to like push away the SQ and the EQ and stay in the mind. And you have a very like a very versatile mind and a very influential mind as well. That's like the 16-4 together. So it's easy to think that in your case it would be so easy for you to stay in the mastery of your mind, and that all those throat gates that you have that are also so powerful, and they are not on the abstract side. They're really more the leadership, the precision, the talent, the being present in the now. Like you have all these super powerful throat gates. So and then a fourth line in the IQ to get that across to the world, right? So I could see how you totally would stay there. And even your EQ, how you react is like this kind of the sixth line who doesn't even goes up in spirit and kind of doesn't want to be in the feelings, and then having things that are taking a long time to, even when it comes to the SQ, to like, to really open the heart and to really get into rapture, kind of is like also a journey, right? So it's so interesting for me to see that you have all these transpersonal lines, and you have this very strong IQ, and almost like the only thing that would make you come back to your true third line personality and to live out your profile is something like your daughter, because otherwise you were almost too conditioned to stay on the safe journey in this.
Totally. You so said that, because everything was going according, right? I often have said I was always just like, and then boom, big wave. Like, your lady, you don't even know what you have coming. And it goes all the way back to like the day she was supposed to even be born. And it was a whole month before she came, a month before, and then a day before. Like she was very precise in how this was going to come to be. Oh yeah. I mean, I should have known that when I had all these other complications, listen, I have only gratitude, honestly. And the reality is, when I get to write about it and express it and live my true life's work and help other people shed skin and learn to detach, and because it's experienced, it's true experience. It's not an intellect. I had to completely get out of the intellect to embody the emotions of it, which I love the way you showed that. That made so much sense for me. And that time and space and patience, that's my life story. Oh my goodness, Bella. I'm like, I can feel as I'm telling you, I'm like, okay, I've got 2 more years to hit that 50. Okay, we're getting there. That's why the grays come in a little faster. Typically, I got a bun on the head. I don't, like I have just, and the alienation I've noticed that I've pulled way back, like for being somebody that's out there. Just now, I'm starting to step into my trusting of my voice and intellect and wisdom and knowing all these things that I can, share in my inner space. How do I contribute that in the world now? That's that 8 seeking,
right,
bring the voice out. And so I've been doing more of that now, and letting go of all the like proving myself, and what if it doesn't come across a certain way, or making a mistake. And now that I have all that awareness, it is full permission, honestly. And it's been really lovely to witness. So my whole thing is all about empowerment. And I really feel like I've had to become and embody my own power back again, because there is power in my pearl. There's all these different things out there that I'm there to share.
Right.
And that's been a trek.
Yeah. Yeah, I when you speak, I can see the EQ. Or I also watched. I remember when your book came out. I think it was on like Christmas Eve or something, right? Your
It was
birth.
November is when I did my video announcing it, but yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, and the EQ that has alienation, it's not only that it's like going like that it's isolating itself. It's also kind of like not being there. It's like you are there, but you're not there. It's like
Oh,
especially
okay.
when it's emotionally, triggering. It's like a part of you is not there. You're kind of a little bit untouchable, and people can be like, you're there even answering, especially with your objective mind, you can answer, but there's a part of you that isn't there. And I'm thinking, because what I tell people when we work with the EQ, it's like you have to put yourself in those situations where you actually do the opposite, where you stay. If you have alienation, you want to put yourself in a situation that is emotionally uncomfortable, but you stay. And I remember when you did the video, you were like, you had a lot of emotions, but you stayed and you did the video. I really love that, because that is, and you're exposed and you're still there, because if you weren't there, you would have turned up, so I like that. And even more like, how with that 6-line EQ, how can you every time you do something be more there as you do it, more embodied? And that's when the true talent of the 16 also comes out, when you really embrace. And I feel like that's what you're doing.
I love that resonance. Thank you. That's beautiful. And I've done more of that over time for sure. So I feel like what you explained aligns even more to that third line still, which is being an escape artist at times,
Yeah.
right? And just wanting to like check out. And there's days when I'm in that zone and I'm just like, I want, right? I want out. I want out. I don't want to be committed anymore. Throw out all the labels. I've done my time. I'm good. Haven't I learned my lessons? you know, so that is I love that, that reflection. And I've been doing more videos now where I'm doing that. I'm showing up, whether I have anything, I think I know what I'm going to say. I just let the feeling speak for itself.
Mm.
And I've been putting more of those YouTube videos out because that is my truth, right? I'm not about like the perfected branding commercialized person. I want to show up presently in the actual space of that heart and be a reflection of permission back to people, saying, who cares if your hair isn't colored? Who cares if you don't have makeup on? Like, if you have something to say, don't hold your message back. Like, don't do this anymore, because I know I've done this. I've held myself back. So I love that you pointed that out. Now I'll go back and watch it. I'm going to go back and go,
And
oh,
you were already, this is kind of my last question, how I want to weave it all, because what I often see with 3/5s is that, life is so dynamic, or, however, that's a good word for it, or chaotic, so that you kind of stay in like this part of the chart with your life's work, your revolution, you kind of course, go into the Venus sequence, but it's like, it kind of keeps you towards this part of the chart. And when we look at your chart, especially, you don't only have fifth lines in your radiance and your purpose, but your attraction is a fifth line, your vocation is a fifth line. So for you, there is all this impact, and what you're saying, the power, the impact, the voice that is there, and that's so much want to be shared. So if you would like stay in the not, in the evasiveness or in the chaoticness of every day, that you wouldn't be able to tap into that. So when I have a fifth line radiance and purpose and vocation, I know that you are here to make an impact. I know that you're powerful. And I just wanted to like use the last part of this conversation to like to understand like a little bit more in your unique case, also knowing you have the eight, how do you want to impact the world? What are where do you want to use your power? What is it serving? And that's so interesting to me, like to hear also with the 61 twice, because it's also like you're channeling in something completely new, maybe from an open head and a quad right, in that 61 that you have in the sun, and also uh in the attraction. So
yeah,
yeah,
right.
I would love to speak a little.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Again, it just gives me like, whoa, there's a vessel here to share. It gets me like, who needs diamonds and pearls? Like, this is my pearl. This is bliss to me, right? This is my vitality, like on steroids. I could sit and do this all day long. And if I didn't have to feed people or pay bills, I'm in my heaven. That's all, honestly, it's there's a simpleton in me at best. My impact, I love that question. Um, it's continuing to be the light, the source of inspiration, of truth, authenticity, and just self-empowerment, and just reminding everybody of that light within them. I looked for years outside of me, as everybody has. And I just did a video the other day too. Keep following your heart, trusting yourself, even when you're learning from other people. I have watched myself evolve in that, because there was times I put everybody on a pedestal, especially with the open heart and the not remembering everything thought that I wasn't smart, or, you know, the intellect that I would take things in. And Bella, the impact really is about reminding people you are absolutely divine as you are. Quit looking as if everybody else has something that you don't. Start discovering the truth of yourself and your soul, and live it. Like, genuinely live it, unabashedly, unapologetically, and just with great awe and wonder, you know. And detach, let go of expectations. Don't think that you're doing something wrong, right? Like, embody the full experience that this life has given us. Like, we came here for a reason, and it's okay. You have permission, right? Like in my book, Permission to Feel, like, it's okay to feel too. Like, don't just be so spiritual that you forget to be human. And it's about impacting people with reminding the beauty of both, you know, of that experience. Because it's taken all these years for me to finally be okay with it. Years ago, stuff like this, I would have totally resisted doing, like, this kind of stuff, because my head would have said, you don't have everything together. What is she going to ask you? Oh my goodness. What if you're to this and to that? And people are going to be like, blah, blah, blah. I have dimmed that noise down, and I'm just like, game on, bring it on. Let's do it. I am done. I have no time. That's the 61. I'm done with BS. I'm done with my own BS. And I want to remind other people that it's time to, like, smell where your BS is and be done with it and start moving forward. Like, quit wasting your experiences.
I love that. Can you speak a little bit more about the 61 and how you see why you see it like that? So the shadow psychosis. So how do you can you, because
Yeah,
I love that.
because the mind is, this is where I've often kind of short circuited my own intellect, or my own inspiration, or my own capacity to bring a great light out. Is I would get caught up in the, well, be careful what you're saying to people, because if you're not living it, well, then that's a pretty hypocritical perspective, right? So I make sure to stay in my truth, to stay aligned, to know that the impact I'm here to make, however far, wide, close, near, whatever, in every moment of my, journey, is to listen to the stories I'm telling myself first and foremost. Like, what is the BS I'm buying for myself, right? And if it's just, drama, then it's drama. And it's acknowledging, it's taking accountability, it's taking self-ownership. I have the capacity to smell my own stuff. And when I smell that, I know I'm in some mind zone cave that is just trying to take me down, So yeah, I think it's more of just, don't be afraid to witness what it is you're experiencing, and then drop all the drama that comes with it. If you've done wrong, you've done wrong. Call it out, stand up, own it, take accountability. And the one thing I know for sure that I just am not comfortable ever with is the title of expert. I no matter how much I know, whatever wisdom I have, whatever experiences I've embodied, don't make me the expert, because of the fifth line too. Now you're going to think I have all your answers, and I'm not here to tell you your answers. I'm here to guide you back to yourself. That's where I get a high on that. And I've even watched myself in this whole coaching arena. Like, where do I come to life more? I'm not a strategist. I'm not going to give you a modality. I want to infuse you with, like, your own juices of being intoxicated by you. Like, I'm pretty bad, what? Like, this is awesome. I want to live this life that I've been given, So that's the zest I wake up with. That's the vitality and the bliss. That's truly, like, I know that's where my power is, in being an example of it, and also relating with people, because I'm never coming at it like I figured it out. I'm like, listen, I get it. You punched a wall, so have I. You've said the F word, so have I. You said you want to run away, so have I. And I feel like that relatability gives everybody permission to just call themselves out and move on.
Yeah.
Instead of guilting themselves, which is so easy for my profile to live in all day long. You know, I didn't get it right. I'm conscious parenting, but I act like an unconscious mother. I know correctly. If I know she's sensitive, I'm being so insensitive. I could make a story out of everything if I let myself, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, that's the truth I stand within. And I know it's just constantly morphing. Like, in a year, you might ask me and again, and I'll be like, well, here's where I am today.
I mean, I just love the magic of the chart and like how you're living it out, and how, you know, when we get it, when we can see how it's playing out in a good sense. Because when you, I mean, first of all, what you're speaking about is that like the merging or the dance between the third and the fifth line, that I think is like your story really shows what it is to step into the fifth line and keep the humanity, you know, and the relatableness. I don't even know how to say that, you know, with like you're marrying those two. The impact is there, the voice is there, the leadership is there, and still you're relatable, and still you're being there, and still, you know, the messiness of life is still embraced. So
Yes.
that's such a beautiful. And then I also, you know, when you say, oh, I'm not a strategist, and I see like 61 twice, and then I see 16 twice, like enthusiasm, inspiration. Like that's what you do with people. That's, you know, that's what you're saying. You know, you help fueling that, you know, the inner authority that are in people, but you do it not by a modality like it's by the energy of enthusiasm and inspiration. Totally. So that's like it's coming out exactly how, totally, you know, how your imprinting is telling us.
Yeah. And it's so not the left world we live in. Like, trying running a coaching practice, telling people that it can sound like a bunch of hullabulla when they want to know, well, how is this going to work? I'm like, here's how I roll. I'm an in the moment now, intuitive kind of like speaker. Like, if you want a plan, I'm not her. I mean, I'm straight. This is the BS. I don't even tell people, because it's not about, I want to be liked and I want to grow my business. And it's more of like, here's what I know I can offer you. I trusted enough to know my gifts. You've got to be okay with receiving them. I'm not going to go changing myself for the sake of your acceptance. You know, the right people on my fractal line will come. The right people that are infused by whatever I'm putting out will come. And that's been the patience, let me tell you, because when you're in this dynamic world and you've got all these insights, I just want to go save everybody. I really do. Yeah. I mean, poor people everywhere I go. I'll stop people at Starbucks, to Walmart, to Dunkin' Donuts, I'm like, hey, you want your human design chart? Let me tell you how you can live a better life. What's your birthday? I have no shame. I mean, and I do it lovingly, but it's just my whole poor family. They look at me like, oh my God, please be done. Which you're probably saying too now. It's been an hour. So anyway, it's one of those things where this is passion. This is my life. I told you. I mean, I'm living. I mean,
we started in the beginning too, you know, me with my 28 too, I'm just jumping in, and then it's like, you know, we knew it was going to take us on a journey, and like, but I think this hour has really been so beautiful to see like the whole chart coming together. Like you were saying, you're seeing it inside of you all the time, but now we have also put it, like we have put just really in 1 hour weaving the parts, and how there is, you know, where it looks like there might be dissonance, actually there is a perfect harmony. And I think it's like such a fun conversation, because we were so much able, like with your help, you know, to just make it make sense and not just be numbers and lines.
No, thank you. I'm grateful that we trusted the process of this, right? Like, even if the intention was, let's focus on one thing. I mean, hopefully whoever listens is benefiting to look at I mean, the holographic, right? Again, detaching from the way even Gene Keys is supposed to look in human design, and just embodying the experience of it all, because it's so easy to go into the intellect and want to figure every nuance out. I've done that. I've been anyway, I lived that way too long, and now I've got freedom. I'm like, quad right. Permission number 1, quad right. You know, I'm like, good. Yeah. So, but thank you. This has been so cool. I didn't even know we would like take it to this route, this kind of, you know, way, and maybe what we thought, you know, it just made, so yay, whoever's watching, I hope you like.
It's so cool to do, because before, you know, this way, whoever is a 3-5, I think there's so much value in this, And also the way that you were speaking about the 61 at the end, you know, that's like, there are things here, they're like pearls, like you're saying, pearls and diamonds for so many. And that's why also it's like all the activations are important. And that's like, I feel like this is really can be so valuable, like you say, for so many people, and especially we have dived into, and also the open ego with that 21.
Yeah.
There's so many
We
pieces
talked about a lot of gene keys today. Ambassador 16, 21, 35, 32, 42.
Exactly.
62. Oh my goodness. Basically, just if you have Sandra's chart, welcome to listening, you know. But this is great because, again, see, this is the experiment in action. And this is why I tell people, like even Richard says, look at the person first, then reference the chart. And I so believe that, you know, like when I coach people, I don't want to see their chart first. I'm just like, let me get to know you. And then they bring something up. I go, well, isn't that interesting? Look at right there. And they're like, oh, I go, yes. Isn't that amazing? I felt the same thing, you know, when I finally discovered the truth of my being. Yeah, I could be on a high all day long on this stuff, Bella. I mean, this is why I love this work so much, you know, and I want to dive as deeply as I can too, because this is liberation. This is the impact that's so possible, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
This is so awesome.
Yeah. I'm with